is Tale Wagging. It's a completely different show. All right. Who's ready for a story? You ready for a story? Dan?
No.
Dan, where's your enthusiasm for a story?
I still get to hear these every day.
This one's a special one. A very special story. I've been saving it for a really long time because I'm really excited to tell it to you.
Uh-huh.
You ready?
Yeah. So ready.
And if I keep looking behind me, it's because there's a kitten that crawled into this chair since our break, and he is sleeping right behind my butt. He's being real cute. Okay. This is the story of 3 strong women. Now, I found 2 versions of this story. Both had elements I really, really, really loved, so I blended them together into a story smoothie. And so this is the strawberry banana flavor of stories.
Lupin, today we're going to teach you to respect women.
Respect whammon, Lupin.
3 strong women for Kitty to respect.
Don't mess with these whammon. Okay, so hundreds of years ago, the great emperor of Japan held a wrestling tournament once a year. And the strongest and fiercest wrestlers arrived to compete for this huge pot of gold. And these wrestlers, they were gigantic. They often broke each other's bones. Some were tossed out of the ring and they died from the fall. Some were trampled and suffocated. The more brutal and exciting the fights were, the more the crowds liked them. And the champion would have enough gold to last him the rest of his life. So this was a big deal. This was like the WrestleMania of Japan. So 1 year, our main character, Forever Mountain, is his name.
That is a legitimate wrestling name.
Who would you picture Forever Mountain to look like? If you had to pick a wrestler for Forever Mountain to be.
Genghis Khan.
Genghis Khan?
The wrestler.
The wrestler? Okay, we are casting Genghis Khan, the wrestler.
No. So there was God, I'm trying to remember his name, but there was a character that debuted at the Royal Rumble. He looked like he was 8 feet tall, and in his debut, he was way taller than The Undertaker and threw him out. And he debuted in, like, this weird bodysuit.
What?
It's really weirdo. Like, I don't remember his name now. Somebody out there does, but that's who it is. That's the Forever Mountain Man. He's taller than The Undertaker and wears, like, a skin-colored bodysuit. I'm not making this up.
This sounds made up. I don't think that this is a thing. What about Braun Strowman?
Yes, fine.
Okay.
Have it your way.
Braun Strowman has now been cast as Forever Mountain, a champion wrestler from a small island off the coast of Japan. So he's going to enter this tournament, and he left his home to travel to the mainland. And when he arrived, he had 2 months to practice for this tournament. And he decided, I'm going to go up in the mountains and train for this contest. You know, the air isn't as thick there. You get your extra training in the thin air. And then you come back down and you're like, cardio, endurance. So he strode down the road on legs thick as the trunks of small trees. He had been walking 7 hours and could, and probably would, walk for 7 more without getting tired. He thought to himself, they call me Forever Mountain because I am such a good, strong wrestler. Big, too. I'm a fine, brave man, and far too modest to ever say so. When he went into the woods and began to climb a mountain, Forever Mountain noticed there's a young woman carrying a large pitcher of water on her head that she held steady with one hand. She was a round girl, nice, with red cheeks and a nose like a friendly button. And her eyes just looked like she was thinking 10,000 funny stories at once is the description. 10,000. She was jolly and bounceful as she walked. So, if you had to cast a bounceful, strong woman who is, let's say, of marriageable age, who would you put into this role?
we ask Google? Can you just Google bounceful strong woman?
Let's see what happens if I Google bounceful strong woman. Bountiful woman helping those who can't get to stores.
Images. Images.
Images.
Did you mean beautiful? No.
It's all quotes.
It's all quotes.
It's quotes about beautiful, strong women. None of them are pictures.
There's not a single...
Where are the bounceful women?
There's not a single bounceful woman here.
How do I find a bounceful woman?
I mean,
if I take out the word strong? Just show me bounceful. No,
okay,
these women don't look bounceful.
I guess it depends what you mean by bounceful. Something's bouncing?
It's not the thing I want.
Who would you cast as a bounceful strong woman?
We need a... Okay, let's forget bounceful for a second. We just need a strong woman of marriageable age. I mean, this could be a Mandy Rose. I hear that she can bench press a lot.
Be a wrestler?
We just need a strong woman.
You ain't got nothing? You don't keep any of those in the back of your mind?
Just, strong woman. Young woman, strong.
Got it. In my head. Locked in. Move on.
Let's move
Apparently you're asking too much.
All right. So, she had her pitcher of water, and since Forever Mountain was this fun-loving guy who liked to play jokes, he thought to himself, if I don't tickle that fat girl under the arm, I shall regret it all my life. She's sure to squeak, and I shall laugh and laugh. If she drops her bucket, that'll be even funnier. I can always offer to run and fill it up again and carry it for her. This is totally worth it. I think I killed him.
These are great ideas.
Forever Mountain crept up behind the woman as quietly as he could. He stretched out his hand and said, Kitchy-coo, kitchy-coo, ka-chaka-chaka-chaka. Because that's the thing one would say. The girl did give a satisfying squeal and a giggle. I assume it would sound like, however, to his great surprise, the young woman brought down her elbow and squeezed his hand until it was stuck in her armpit, and then she reached up with her other hand to hold the pitcher in place. Her elbow and arm were like a vice, and Forever Mountain could not free his hand as the young woman kept walking and dragging him along with her. He says, ho, 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 you've got me. I can't move at all. And she says, I know. And they just keep going.
I know how he feels. Here, you can put this under your arm for the full effect. Yep. It's like this, but in spirit.
Stop! Forever Mountain yelled. I don't want to hurt you. But the young woman just kept walking up the mountain.
Oh, Forever Mountain.
Dragging Forever Mountain along.
You don't understand what you've done.
Try as he might, could not free himself.
I don't try.
He says, now, let me go. I'm warning you. I don't want to use all my strength.
No. Big mistake, dude.
You could get really hurt. I am a very powerful man. And the girl said, Pull. I admire powerful men. And she just kept walking. Forever Mountain was talking. He yanked and yanked, but his hand remained trapped. The wrestler tugged and pulled until his feet dug great furrows in the ground. She couldn't have paid him less attention if he had been a puppy. A small one.
That doesn't make sense.
A very small
You'd
puppy.
pay so much attention to a small puppy.
Nope, not. I actually would. Forever Mountain said, Hey, it was just a joke. I really didn't mean anything by it. Can't you take a joke? Please let me go. I am the famous wrestler, Forever Mountain. I must go and show my strength before the Emperor. And then he burst out weeping from shame and confusion. And you're hurting my hand.
Amateur.
The girl looked at him sympathetically. Oh, you poor, sweet, little Forever Mountain. Are you tired? Like, shall I carry you? I can leave the water here and come back for it later.
No.
No, I don't want you to carry me.
No.
I want
Fine.
He says, I want you to let me go.
Fine.
I want to forget I ever saw you. What do you want with me?
I just don't want to touch you because cooties. That's why.
I only want to help you, said the girl. And then, seeing him panting, she added, you know what? I'll walk more slowly. So then she suggested, why don't you come along to my mother's house and let us make a strong man out of you? That tournament doesn't begin for 3 months.
You and your mom making a strong man out of me? Interesting. I will continue.
Since Forever Mountain had planned to spend that time training anyway, he agreed to come along feeling like, you know what, I don't have anything to lose. Also, he was afraid the girl might become angry if he refused and put him on top of a tree until he changed his mind. When they arrived, she freed his hand, which had become very red and swollen. They arrived at a small valley where a simple farmhouse stood with a thatched roof. Marumi, a voice cried out to the young woman from inside the cabin. Is that you? It is me, mother, and I have brought a guest. Just then, a woman came out of the house carrying a stove and a bathtub. One just on top of the other, above her head. Forever Mountain was a little bit amazed and gasped as he watched the woman carefully put the stove and bathtub down on her porch. She waved to him and said, "Ha, just doing some spring cleaning," and then disappeared back into the cabin. All of a sudden, Forever Mountain heard another voice coming over the hill. Marumi, is that you? It is me, grandmother, and I have brought a guest. Much to Forever Mountain's astonishment, a tiny old woman appeared at the ridge of the hill carrying a cow in her arms. As she descended the hill, he heard the grandmother say, "The poor darling hurt its leg." As she came toward them, she stumbled over the roots of a great oak tree. "Heh, my eyes aren't what they used to be. That's the 4th time this month I've stumbled over that tree." So she gently put the cow down, wrapped her skinny arms around the trunk of the tree, and pulled it out of the ground. Marumi says, "Oh, grandmother, you should have let me pull it up for you." Grandmother says, "It's fine. Daughter, throw that tree away like a good girl so no one will fall over it, but make sure it doesn't hit anybody." So grandmother picked up the cow and continued on to the barn with it. Marumi's mother went over to the tree, picked it up with both hands, and threw it. Up went the tree, sailing end over end, growing smaller and smaller as it flew. It landed with a faint crash up on the mountainside. "Oh, how clumsy," she said. "I meant to throw it over the mountain. Ah, it's probably blocking the path now. I'll have to get up early tomorrow and move it." Any ideas for casting the mother or grandmother at this point?
No.
Just not? No? The wrestler was no longer listening at this point. He had quietly fainted. They put him to bed. Mother remarked, "Feeble young man." The next day, Forever Mountain woke, and he saw Marumi smiling at him. He asked, "What's going on here? What is this? I don't understand." Marumi said, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Like, how come you're all so strong?" Marumi says, "It runs in the family. You see, we love the mountain air up here. It calms us and gives us strength." She said, but where are the men?" Marumi says, "Dead. The emperor needed soldiers, and they were forced to fight in his wars. They lost their lives, and ever since then, we've lived alone. But we're not afraid. We've learned to exercise and become strong. We've watched the animals and birds, and tonight we'll show you what else we can do."
Wow.
So later that evening, as the sun began to set, the three women began to dance in a clearing as Forever Mountain watched. And then suddenly they began to wrestle with each other and toss each other high into the air. Sometimes they caught each other. Sometimes they did triple and quadruple flips. One time, Grandmother flew 50 yards through the air, and Marumi caught her and gently set her down. Another time, the mother just jumped back and forth over the cabin. The wrestling was like a dream dance, and Forever Mountain could not believe what he was seeing. The next morning, Forever Mountain went to Marumi and asked to begin his training to be strong like them. Marumi said, "All right, but you'll have to help us around the farm. We will begin lessons with Grandmother, for she is the tenderest among us and will not hurt you." They gave him the simplest food to eat and the toughest. Day by day, they prepared his rice with less and less water until no ordinary man could have chewed or digested it. Every day, he was made to do the work of 5 men, and every evening he rested disposition. He grew stronger and stronger, but was hardly aware of it. Grandmother could still throw him easily into the air and catch him again, without ever changing her sweet old smile. His legs were now they had been like logs, but now they were like pillars. His big hands were as hard as stones, and when he cracked his knuckles, the sound was like trees splitting on a cold night. He practiced raising 1 foot high above the ground and bringing it down with a crash. And people in nearby villages looked up at the winter sky and told each other, "It's really late in the year for thunder." Soon he could pull up a tree as well as Grandmother. He could even throw one, but only a short distance. One evening he managed to pin the Grandmother for half a minute. She smiled and laughed. Marumi squealed with joy and threw her arms around him, but gently. She was afraid of cracking his ribs. Forever Mountain was grateful for all the training they had given him and the hospitality. He offered to pay them the prize money when he won, but they refused. Marumi said, "We all like you too much to sell you anything, and it's not proper to accept gifts of money from strangers." "True," said Forever Mountain. "I will now ask your mother's and grandmother's permission to marry you. I want to be one of the family."
What? That escalated.
Marumi says, "Ooh, I'll get a wedding dress ready." Mother and grandmother quickly agreed to the proposal. We're going to be one big happy family, but first he has to go to the tournament. So when it came time for Forever Mountain to leave the mountain, he was sad, but he dreamed of winning the tournament, so he put his hair up in a man bun, a top knot, and departed. When he reached the palace grounds, other wrestlers were already there eating enormous bowls of rice and comparing one another's weight, paid little attention to Forever Mountain. He was immediately called upon to fight. As he entered the ring, the crowd laughed at him because Forever Mountain was dressed in simple brown shorts and he wasn't as fat or ferocious as the other wrestlers. He was facing a wrestler who was said to have the biggest stomach in all the country. The other wrestler raised his foot and brought it down with a fearsome stomp. And he glared fiercely at Forever Mountain. Forever Mountain raised his foot, and he brought his foot down. There was a sound like thunder. The earth shook, and the other wrestler bounced into the air and out of the ring as gracefully as a soap bubble. 5 other wrestlers decided they weren't wrestling this season. I don't know, something better to do. They looked annoyed with Forever Mountain. After the first match, Forever Mountain brought his foot down more lightly, and as each wrestler came into the ring, he picked him up very gently and carried him out and placed him before the Emperor, and then bowed most courteously. In the end, Forever Mountain was declared the champion. The Emperor was happy the wrestling was over with quickly so he could go write poetry, and he told Forever Mountain, "You better not wrestle anymore," gesturing at the other wrestlers sitting on the ground who were weeping in disappointment like fat babies. Forever Mountain agreed to his retirement, took the gold, and before he left the Emperor's court, he shared some of the gold with the other wrestlers. This cheered them up immensely. He saved 3 heavy bags of prize money for his new family and departed for the mountain of the 3 women where he wanted to become a farmer. Marumi was waiting for him. When she saw him, she ran down the mountain and picked him up with the bags of money and carried him halfway up the mountainside. Then she giggled and put him down. The rest of the way, she let him carry her. Forever Mountain never fought in public again. Some say, when the grounds begin to tremble and a rumbling can be heard high in the mountain, it's not really a storm or an earthquake. It's only Forever Mountain and the 3 strong women. They are wrestling and shaking the mountain. They are dancing, and there is no need to be afraid. So, what do you think of this story?
So, ladies, go live on a mountain, work out a lot, and when some dude tries to tickle you from behind, just
keep his hand.
Keep his hand.
Keep it right here.
Keep that hand.
We gotta train our armpit strength.
Drag him home, and you will have a husband.
No, she didn't need a husband. She just got a husband.
What? Strong woman can't get a husband?
I'm just saying she didn't kidnap him to make him become a husband.
Oh, you know. You didn't say nothing like that.
She just took pity on him because
why'd she kidnap him?
Because he was so feeble and weak, and she felt like she needed to make him strong.
Oh, she had to change him.
She had to change him.
Yeah, sounds like a romantic comedy to me.
That's what happened. All right. Are you ready for story number 2?
No. I'm not ready. Am I ever ready?
No, you're not ready.
No.
You're not ready for this one.
But yet these questions persist.
The second story I have is how the camel lost its antlers and its tail from Mongolian folktales.
So you're telling me the camel was a reindeer?
Actually, I might even have a picture. No, I didn't save the picture. He looked a little different than he does now. It will be addressed in the story.
Okay.
Very quickly.
Go on.
In the first sentence. Many, many years ago, Camel had a magnificent, 12 branches of antlers and a long, luxurious tail. It was fabulous. The deer...
What kind of luxurious tail? What are we talking about? What is a luxurious tail?
It's going to become clear.
Is it
just a second.
Okay.
Just a second.
Okay, fine.
Because I'm going to talk about the other... Okay. So, Camel has these magnificent antlers and a long, long, luxurious tail. And the deer was ugly looking and bald. And poor horse had almost no tail at all to shoo away flies, which made him irritable. You figuring it out now? What the tail might look like?
It sounds like the camel was a baller. A shot caller.
Camel had all the features.
It sounds
all
like
the
camel,
extra features.
Sounds like
bling,
camel
blingin'.
is going to get jacked with it and not have any regulators to help him out.
Sadly, was where we're going here. Yeah.
Okay, cool story. We done?
No, we're going to tell a story still.
All right.
So Camel really loved his splendored antlers and his tail, adorning his clumsy body. But he didn't think about them much. He had no idea others were jealous of him and naive that other animals might want to trick him out of them. So at noon on a hot summer's day, Camel, especially thirsty, Camel's thirsty, strolled down to the lake for a long, refreshing drink. And after quenching his thirst like a boss, he raised his head and gazed across the water at the distant mountains, swishing his long, full tail this way and that. Because of his great height and accoutrements, Camel was looking good standing there in the sun. Looking fabulous. From the forest surrounding the lake, bald deer emerged. He saw Camel and his impressive antlers, and his eyes narrowed. As he came near, Deer stopped and bowed, his face unmasked with sadness. And sighing, he said, Good afternoon, Mr. Camel. How are you today? Camel thought to himself, my heavens, isn't the deer funny looking? Out loud he said, why, thank you, Mr. Deer. I couldn't be better. What about you? Whatever is the matter? You seem so sad. Yes, sighed the deer. I am sad. I'm very sad. Just so sad. Tonight I'm invited to a celebration. All the forest animals will be there, from far and wide with their fancy furs and their flashy plumage. How can I go there with this hideous bald head? I'm just so ugly and plain. He began to cry, ugly cry, and then he continued, oh, Mr. Camel, Mr. Camel, every night I dream about having wonderful antlers like yours. Would it be possible? Just, could you? Dear Mr. Camel, please let me borrow your antlers. Just for tonight. I beg you. And then snot began to run down his face. Please can I have antlers? I'm so ugly. You can imagine how surprised Camel was by this unexpected request and display of raw emotion. Part with his antlers. But Deer was so forlorn and sobbing with self-pity. The Camel looked down at unattractive Deer and said, well, Mr. Deer, all right. I will agree to let you borrow my antlers, but only for tonight. You must return them to me at dawn. I promise, swore the Deer. I promise you, noble Mr. Camel, that I will return your antlers first thing tomorrow morning when you come to the lake to get a drink. Deer fixed the magnificent branches to his head and scurried off into the forest. For the first time, he felt handsome and powerful. He strutted the forest paths with his head held high. Soon, Deer met up with Horse. Well, hello there, Mr. Deer, said the astonished Horse, marveling at his suddenly royal-looking friend. Say, where'd you get those splendid antlers? And Deer told Horse the story, which gave Horse an idea. He hurried to the lake and found Camel still there, munching on some grass now. Good afternoon, Mr. Camel, and how are you on this hot day? Horse asked, trying not to laugh out loud at bald Camel. After they exchanged pleasantries, the Horse not so subtly just launched into the same story as Deer. Horse asked, hey, could I, maybe kind of, sort of borrow your long, beautiful, luxurious tail? I would be eternally grateful, kind Mr. Camel, as it would improve my appearance enormously. Figuring he had already lent out his antlers, so it wouldn't hurt to also loan out his tail, Camel agreed. But you're gonna return it to me at daybreak, right? Oh, yes, I promise. Absolutely. I promise you. Generous, Mr. Camel. I will return your tail first thing tomorrow morning when you come to the lake for a drink. Horse trotted into the forest, swishing and swashing that long, full tail. Quote, the most delighted horsey smile you can imagine spread across his big horsey face. You can probably guess where the story goes from here. Deer and Horse, so mesmerized by the beauty and practicality of their new features, did not come to the lake the next morning, or the day after, or the next week, or the next month. Deer and Horse never came back to Camel to return what they borrowed. Each time Camel saw them at a distance, he would call out and beg them, like, hey! Hey, you guys! Hey! Could you please keep your word and give me my stuff back? Please give me my stuff back. I really want my stuff back. and the horse would neigh with laughter and gallop away. The deer would sneer scornfully and tell Camel, I'll return your antlers when the billy goat's horns grow up into the heavens, and when the foolish camel's stubby tail grows down to the earth. Ha 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 ha. So, never. Since then, every day that Camel drinks from a pool of water and sees his bald head, he shakes it with disbelief and sadness. He raises his head and gazes hard across the steppe, looking carefully from one mountain to another. Trusting Camel still believes that deer or horse will appear with apologies and return what they took. Deer and horse have not gone unpunished for their behaviors. Horse was tamed by man, who clipped his tail, put a heavy saddle on his back, and put him to work. Horse no longer spends his whole life freely roaming the wide Mongolian steppe. And as for the deer, as proof that the antlers do not truly belong to him, once every year, they fall right off his head. While deer waits for a new pair, he sneaks around the forest with his old bald head exposed for all to see. The animals who know the tale all point and laugh, and deer runs away in shame. The end.
Wow.
How you doing?
I'm fine. Sounds like Camel is sad.
Camel's very sad.
But Camel still has his humps.
Yeah.
His humps.
He sure humps a lot.
His humps.
Mm-hmm.
His lovely camel lumps.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
In the back and in the front.
Yeah. So this is fine.
Mm-hmm.
This is fine. And the moral of the story is don't trust anybody and loan them your body parts.
Don't loan out body parts, y'all.
Stop that.
Don't do it.
In these troubled times, body parts, they might not get returned to you as scheduled.
That's right. Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Do you have it in you for one last story?
No.
Last story.
When has that ever stopped you?
All right. This is a story about a hedgehog. The story is called Hans-My-Hedgehog. And you always have to say it together. It's hyphenated. It's Hans-My-Hedgehog.
Should we introduce him like we're a sitcom? Here comes Hans-My-Hedgehog.
You'll have to familiarize me with what these buttons do. All right, this is actually a Grimm Brothers story. So it's something that you have a little bit more easy access to, but I'd never heard of this one before, so I had a lot of fun discovering it. Once upon a time, there was a peasant who had money and land enough, but rich as he was, there was just still something missing from his happiness. Oh, that's what it is. He had no children with his wife. That's how a lot of these stories start.
Hype.
Often...
So bad.
Often when he went to the city with the other peasants, they would mock him and ask him, hey, why you got no children? Where are your children at? Hey, we've got children. Why don't you have children? He finally became angry. He returned home and he said, I will have a child, even if it is a hedgehog. And then his wife had a baby, and the top half was a hedgehog, and the bottom half was a boy.
I feel like I need to do something.
Did it. When she saw the baby, she was horrified and said, now see what you have wished upon us. The man said, it cannot be helped. The boy must be baptized. But alas, we cannot ask anyone to be his godfather.
They'd all say no.
And the woman said, and the only name we can give him is Hans-My-Hedgehog.
'Cause reasons.
'Cause alliteration. When he was baptized, the pastor said, because of his quills, he cannot be given an ordinary bed. So they put a little straw behind the stove and laid him in it. And he could not drink from his mother, for he would have stuck her with his quills. And then he lay there behind the stove, for 8 years. And his father grew tired of him and thought, if only he would die.
Great story.
But he did not die. He just laid there, being a hedgehog boy. Hans-My-Hedgehog. Now it happened there was a fair in the city, and the peasant wanted to go. He asked his wife, "Hey wife, what should I bring you?" She said, "A little meat, some bread rolls, things for the household." And then he asked the servant girl, "Hey, what do you want?" She's like, "Oh, a pair of slippers, some fancy stockings. Freedom. A raise. Benefits. Health insurance." Finally, he said, "Hans-My-Hedgehog, what would you like?" He said, "Father, bring me some bagpipes." Oh my God. Okay. When the peasant returned home, he gave his wife what he had brought for her, meat and bread rolls. Then he gave the servant girl the slippers and the fancy stockings. He went behind the stove and gave Hans-My-Hedgehog the bagpipes. When Hans-My-Hedgehog had them, he said, "Father, go to the blacksmith's and have my cock rooster shod." That's code for put horseshoes on my rooster.
Oh.
Because that's how you talk in old-timey times. "Then I will ride away and never come back." The father was happy to get rid of him, so he had the rooster shod. And when it was done, Hans-My-Hedgehog climbed upon his cock rooster and rode away. He took pigs and donkeys with him to tend in the forest. I don't know if livestock was an agreed to part of the deal, but we're moving on. In the forest, the rooster flew into a tall tree with him. There he sat and watched over the donkeys and the pigs. He sat there for years, until the herd had grown quite large. His father knew nothing about him, and while sitting in the tree, he played his bagpipes and made beautiful music. One day, a king came by. He was lost, as kings often are in the forest. And he heard the music. He was amazed to hear it, and sent a servant to look around and see where it was coming from. So loud. Yes, that music. Let's go find that. It's so good. Best music. So beautiful. The servant looked and only saw a little animal sitting high in a tree. It looked like a rooster with a hedgehog sitting on it. The king said to his servant to ask him, "Why are you sitting there? And also, do you know the way back to my kingdom that I have lost?" Hans-My-Hedgehog climbed down from the tree and told him, "I will show you the way if the king would promise in writing to give him the first thing that greeted him at the royal court upon his arrival home."
Is it a two-tailed fox?
We'll have to find out.
Okay.
The king thought, "Well, I can do that easily enough. Hans-My-Hedgehog cannot understand writing. I'll put down whatever I want to." The king took the pen and ink and wrote something, and after he had done so, Hans-My-Hedgehog showed him the way, and he arrived safely at home. His daughter saw him coming from afar and was so overjoyed she ran to meet him and kissed him. He thought about Hans-My-Hedgehog and told her what had happened, that he was supposed to promise the first thing that greeted him to a strange animal that rode a rooster and made beautiful music. Instead, he had written that this would not happen on the piece of paper, for Hans-My-Hedgehog could not read. Princess was happy about this and said, "That's a good thing. I would not have gone with him in any case. At all. For sure not going to do that." Hans-My-Hedgehog tended the donkeys and pigs and was of good cheer and sat in the tree blowing out his bagpipes. No.
Wasn't ready.
Now it happened. Another king came this way with his servants and messengers. He too got lost and did not know the way home because the forest was so large. He too heard the beautiful music from afar and asked his messengers to go see what it was, where it was coming from. Messenger ran into the tree where he saw Hans-My-Hedgehog astride the cock rooster. And the messenger asked him, "What are you doing up there?" Like, Hans-My-Hedgehog said, "What does it look like? I'm tending my donkeys and pigs, obviously." Messenger said, "We're lost, can't find our way back to the kingdom. Can you show us the way?" Hans-My-Hedgehog climbed down from the tree, told the old king, "I'll show you the way if you give me the thing you first meet." Yada, yada, yada. Same exact thing. When that was done, Hans-My-Hedgehog rode ahead on the rooster, showing them the way.
Does this happen 3 times?
No?
Cool. Go on.
All right. When the king arrived at his court, there was great joy. His daughter, super beautiful, runs out to him, hugs him. So happy father had returned. "Where have you been? I lost my way. Met this half hedgehog, half human." And she promised, "You know what? If he shows up, I'll go with him." Because this king did not do the paper switcheroo. She's like, "It's fine. I get it. I'll go with him." Hans-My-Hedgehog tended his pigs, and the pigs had more pigs, and there were so many the whole forest was full. Then Hans-My-Hedgehog let his father know they should empty out all the stalls in the village because he's coming. With such a large herd of pigs, anyone who wanted to could take part in the slaughter. It saddened the father to hear this because he thought that his son, Hans-My-Hedgehog, had long since died. He was very disappointed to find out that his half hedgehog, half man son was alive. And Hans-My-Hedgehog drove the pigs into the village and had them butchered. What a slaughter, what a commotion. They could hear the noise 2 hours away. And then Hans-My-Hedgehog said, "Father, have my cock rooster shod a second time at the blacksmith's. Then I will ride away and not come back again as long as I live." So he's like, "Fine." And he was once again happy Hans-My-Hedgehog was not coming back. Hans-My-Hedgehog rode into the first kingdom, and the king ordered, "If anyone approaches carrying bagpipes and riding on a rooster, he should be shot, struck down, stabbed, anything to prevent him from entering the castle." So when Hans-My-Hedgehog rode up, they attacked him with bayonets, and he spurred his rooster on, flew over the gate and up to the king's window. Landing there... Oh, God! This is the sound of when Hans-My-Hedgehog is in town. Okay. So then he struck a superhero landing, and he shouted, "Give me what you promised, or it's going to cost you and your daughter their lives." The king told the princess, "Honey, you got to go out to him now to save our lives. Sorry." She put on a white dress. Her father gave her a carriage with 6 horses, magnificent servants, money, and property. She climbed aboard, and Hans-My-Hedgehog took his place beside her with his rooster and bagpipes. They said farewell and drove off. The king thought he would never see them again. However, it did not go as he thought it would, for when they had traveled a short distance from the city, Hans-My-Hedgehog pulled off her beautiful clothes and struck her with his quills until she was bloody all over.
Okay.
Awkward.
Woo!
It's just got real. He said, "This is the reward for your deceit. Go away. I do not want you." And then he sent her back home, and she was cursed as long as she lived. Oof. So, Hans-My-Hedgehog, riding his cock rooster and carrying his bagpipes, rode on to the second kingdom, where he had also helped the king find his way. This one had ordered, if anyone looking like a hedgehog dude should arrive, they should be saluted and brought to the royal castle with honors and a military escort. When the princess saw him, she was horrified because he looked so strange, but she thought, nothing can be done about it, and she had promised her father she'd go with him. She welcomed Hans-My-Hedgehog, and they were married. He was taken to the royal table. She sat next to him while they ate and drank. That evening, when it was time to go to bed, she was afraid, and rightfully so, of his quills. But he told her, "Have no fear. I will not hurt you." He told the old king to have 4 men keep watch at their bedroom door, and they should make a large fire. He said that he would take off his hedgehog skin after going into the bedroom and before getting into the bed. The men should immediately pick it up and throw it into the fire and then stay there until it's completely consumed by fire. When the clock struck 11, he went into the bedroom, took off the hedgehog skin, laid it on the bed. They grabbed it, threw it in the fire, and as soon as the fire consumed it, he was redeemed, and he lay there in the bed, full human. Total human. The king sent for his physician. They washed him with soap, and he became very, very handsome. Handsome young gentleman. When the princess saw what happened, she was overjoyed, and they got up and ate and drank. Now their wedding was celebrated for real. So I guess we had a second wedding. And Hans-My-Hedgehog inherited the old king's kingdom. Some years later, he traveled with his wife to his father and said, "I'm your son." His father said, "I don't have a son. I had one, but he looked like a hedgehog." He's like, "Nope, that was me." And the old father rejoiced and returned with him to the kingdom. So, I guess he forgave his father for never wanting him. The end. Yeah, that's a weird one. It's super weird.
Yep.
It's surprisingly violent. Just out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere.
This was a story written for children by the Grimms.
Forgave the dad
for wanting him to be dead.
Let him come live in his kingdom.
Yeah.
But the princess just whips her with quills and curses her. Sends her back bloody.
Like, you didn't want this? I'm gonna hug you till you hurt. And mess up your white dress forever. You're never getting that out.
So the message is, ladies, if your betrothed is kind of a mutant and unattractive, you better be nice about it. Because it might turn into a prince and everything will be fine, but you don't want to get whipped with them quills.
Yeah, like, he might just take off his skin and then he'll be great. Is the idea. Super weird.
You know, most people who've watched me stream never seen the fact that I'm actually a hedgehog from the waist down. So this is a very close to home story. So
this guy was born with a hedgehog top. You have a hedgehog bottom.
Yeah.
And you just never told anybody till now.
I wouldn't. It's not the kind of thing you share. You seem surprised.
I mean, I'm surprised that you're telling everybody because I felt like this was a secret we were keeping rather well up until this point.
Yep, probably.
It's kind of awkward for everybody involved. I mean, what if this influences, like, your audience?
I don't know.
What if nobody comes back?
And I'll be fine. I've always got this.
No! Thank you for listening to Tale Wagging, a gleeful retelling of fairy tales, folklore, and weird stories from history with sound effects. This is season 2. Crushing it. Bigger, badder, uncut. We're signing off now. I have been Jackie. This is Dan or CGB. Thank you for listening to our stories. We out.